If you are fascinated by the ingenuity of Viking craftsmanship, I encourage you to subscribe to Echoes of Valor now. Today's guide explores a forgotten technique that allowed the Vikings to preserve timber for decades, even centuries, without modern chemicals. This method was vital for their ships, halls, and fortifications, and it offers insights not only into historical preservation, but also practical strategies for modern woodwork and survival applications. Why did Viking timber last far longer than typical wood? Wood exposed to moisture, fungi and insects usually deteriorates within decades if untreated. Yet Viking longships, stave churches and wooden halls often remained intact for centuries. Archaeological evidence points to careful selection, preparation and treatment that went beyond mere drying. Vikings understood that timber could be made resilient through a combination of chemical and mechanical processes rooted in observation and ritualized technique. The cornerstone of this preservation was a method now often called the Viking wood ritual. This involved soaking freshly cut timber in natural compounds, controlled drying, and application of protective substances derived from local resources. Timber destined for ships, for instance, was often immersed in brine or seawater for extended periods. This not only removed sap and certain organic acids that encouraged rot, but also infused the wood with minerals that inhibited microbial growth. Why did natural compounds matter more than speed or convenience? Modern preservation relies on synthetics and industrial treatments, yet Vikings achieved remarkable longevity using only natural materials. Birch tar, pine resin and heated oils were commonly applied to structural elements. These compounds created hydrophobic barriers, deterring water penetration while still allowing wood to breathe. This balance was crucial. Overly sealed wood traps moisture internally and accelerates decay, whereas the Viking ritual maintained the natural equilibrium. So, let's talk about how soaking and brining really improved the durability of timber. You know, soaking timber in brine or water-rich solutions might sound a bit counterintuitive at first, but it actually played a critical role in controlling microbes. Extended immersion would leach out soluble sugars and starches. Those are prime food sources for rot fungi, by the way. At the same time, the mineral content of seawater, especially calcium and magnesium, would penetrate the wood, enhancing its structural rigidity and making it much less susceptible to insect activity. This method was typically used together with careful air drying, which helped prevent cracking and warping. Now, let's consider why resin and tar application was absolutely essential for longevity. Once the timber was partially dried, it was coated with pine resin or birch tar. These substances, rich in phenolic compounds, naturally resist decay. Vikings often heated these materials to improve penetration and create a more uniform coating. There was even a ritualistic aspect to the process, involving repeated applications and exposure to smoke, which further reinforced the protective barrier. Archaeological evidence actually shows timber with multiple tar layers still intact after centuries, which really demonstrates just how effective this approach was. So, let's talk about some practical steps for modern application inspired by Viking methods. For modern woodworking or restoration projects, several elements of the Viking ritual can be applied, you know. Begin with selecting dense, slow-growing timber, such as oak, pine, or larch. Then, soak the wood in brine or a saltwater solution for several days to a few weeks, depending on the size. After removal, air dries slowly in a shaded, ventilated area. Once dried, apply natural oils or resins, heating them gently to improve penetration. Reapply periodically if the wood will be exposed to moisture. And, for small-scale projects, dipping planks in a resin oil mixture can simulate the ancient method. Now, how did this technique enhance both strength and longevity simultaneously? Unlike modern chemical treatments that sometimes compromise wood flexibility or strength, the Viking ritual preserved mechanical integrity. The soaking and mineral infusion reduced internal stresses, while tar and resin coatings protected surfaces. Ships built with these methods endured harsh North Atlantic conditions, and longhouses resisted centuries of wind, rain, and frost. Timber maintained its natural elasticity and durability, a critical factor for dynamic structures like ship hulls and bridges. The broader lesson from Viking wood preservation is actually quite profound. The Viking wood ritual demonstrates the power of observation, patience, and natural materials. It reminds us that technology is not always about modern chemicals or shortcuts. By understanding material properties, leveraging locally available resources, and applying them thoughtfully, ancient cultures achieved results that continue to amaze today. Modern carpenters, restoration experts, and even survivalists can benefit from these insights, applying principles of soaking, mineral infusion, and natural coatings to extend the life of timber without environmental harm. If this exploration of Viking ingenuity changed how you view historical craftsmanship and timber preservation, subscribe to Echoes of Valor and share this with anyone fascinated by ancient technologies. The Viking wood ritual is not just history. It is a practical, sustainable approach to wood longevity that can still inspire and inform modern practice.